Welcome to Easy Elim Learning Simplified. My name is Ruth, and today we are going to be discussing on introduction to chemistry. And you're going to introduce chemistry and different components of chemistry, and also define some terms also in chemistry. So our lesson for today, we are going to be looking at matter, and then we're also going to look at conductors and non-conductors. We're also going to look at drugs and drug abuse, and then you get an opportunity to also do some questions in regards to what we have discussed. So, matter chemistry is the study of the structure, properties, and composition of matter and the changes that matter undergoes. So, we are going to be studying in chemistry as a whole the structure of matter, and we're also going to look at different properties of matter and what matter is composed of and the changes that matter undergoes. We also saw some of the changes of matter when we were discussing in the primary school, especially on melting, boiling, evaporation, condensation, and freezing. But there are also other changes that matter undergoes that we are going to discuss in chemistry as a whole. So, matter is anything that has mass and occupies space, and it exists in three states, that is solid, liquid, and gas. We also have another state called plasma, although we are not going to be discussing in the high school on plasma. So at the moment you're going to be looking at the three states: solid, liquids, and gas. The three states are usually interconvertible. You can move from one state to the other, either by applying heat or reducing the heat of that specific matter. So for example, if you want to move from solid to liquid, you can heat. From liquid to gas, you continue heating. And then if you want to move from gas to liquid, you can cool. And liquid to solid, you also continue cooling. So they are usually that interconvertible, and we are going to be focusing on different states throughout the chemistry syllabus from Form 1 to Form 4. So we know that solids usually have a definite shape and definite volume and also definite mass because the atoms are usually in fixed positions. So that's the reason why they do have everything is definite. For liquids, the particles are usually further apart in comparison to solids. So they will have a definite mass, yes, but they always take the shape of the container because you see they have spaces in between, so the atoms can the particles, sorry, can be rearranged to occupy a certain space they have been put in, although they also have a definite volume. As for gases, the particles are actually free to move about. They are more free. They have no forces of attraction between them, unlike for liquids and gas and solids. So we say that they do not have any definite shape. They do not have any definite volume. They take the shape of the container, and they can be increased or decreased. They can also be pressurized, like for example, how they are put in the gas containers. It depends also in the temp. If you increase the temperature of gases, their movement increases. If you decrease the temperature, their movement decreases as well. So that is the reason why these states of matter are behave that way. And then the next thing we are going to look at is mixtures. So matter is usually found either as a pure substance and a mixture. Later on, we are going to discuss and see pure substances and also mixtures and how we can be able to separate them. For pure substances, they consist of only one type of matter, but for mixtures, they're usually two or more substances. But these substances, they usually retain their individual components, and they retain their physical and chemical properties. And most of the time, we usually use physical means to separate them, to separate these substances. So some of the ways you can be able to separate them is like winnowing. These are just physical means: sieving, filtering, evaporating, decanting, and use of magnets. We are going to discuss in detail on these physical methods when we get to simple classification of substances. We are going to go to details of each method of separating mixtures. and these mixtures are able to be separating. It depends on their nature and properties. So there are some that use winnowing when we come to the traditional way. We have sieving, also we have encountered this in the house. Filtering, it always depends. There are some that can undergo filtration, but they cannot be evaporated. There are some that you can filter, but you can't use magnets. There are some you can't use magnets. There are some that you can't use heat because they will sublime. We are going to discuss all those methods and all those ways in the next topic. Next, you're going to look at another concept of conductors and non-conductors, which also we are going to learn in details when we get to Form 2 and also Form 4. So we know that electric current can flow through materials. When that happens, we call it electrical conductivity. And substances that allow electric current to pass through them or to flow through them, we usually call them conductors. They are conductors. And then substances that do not allow electric current to flow through them, they are called non-conductors. And examples of conductors are most metals are conductors and non-metals are non-conductors. Things like wood, paper. We have a non-metal that is exception, which is conduct, which is called graphite. But later on, we are going also to discuss the specifics of the substances that can conduct electricity and also the ones that do not conduct electricity. Next, we are going to look at drugs. Drugs also is something that we are also going to discuss in chemistry. A drug is any substance, it can be natural or manufactured, which when used, it alters the way the body functions. So anything that is taken, it can be made by man or it can be naturally made by nature. So if you take that and it alters the way your body functions, we call that a drug. And drugs are usually used to treat the ones that are used to treat diseases are usually referred to as medicines, but not all drugs are used to treat diseases. There are some that are not used for treating diseases. They are the ones that are used for pleasure or leisure. So drugs, the ones that are specifically used for treatment, we call them medicines, and they're usually administered through small amounts or specific amounts called doses. And then the instructions that the medical officer usually gives to people in regards to how and what type of drugs they have been issued, especially when you go to the hospital or to the clinics, um, or the buildings where medicines are usually sold. That instruction, we usually call it prescription. And a simple kind of prescription can be, for example, you are given 1 times 2 or 1 times 2 times 3. So this 1 times 2 means you are taking one tablet twice a day or one tablet after every 12 hours. And then 1 times 2 times 3, it means you are taking one tablet after every 12 hours or twice a day for 3 days. It depends on the specificity of the drugs that you have been given by the medical officer. So the next thing is when people usually use drugs for other reasons other than what it is intended for, we usually say that they have done there is drug abuse. They're abusing drugs, and it's not only just for leisure, but when drugs are usually taken either at the overdose where you have been given some medication, but you take more than what you have been prescribed for, or sometimes you do not finish the prescription that you have been given. We usually say that you're abusing drugs. So abuse is not just for leisure where people abuse like cocaine and bang. It's also in the medicine that has been prescribed by the doctor. So some drugs are usually harmful, especially the ones that are used for leisure, and they can cause some effects on the health of the user. Some of the effects include stress. They can cause depression, hallucination, addiction, and addiction is quite a lot in so many drugs, including the ones that have been prescribed by the medical officer. There's also dependency, which at times may cause issues, internal issues in the body. And some of the commonly abused drugs are tobacco, we have alcohol, we have bang, and we have miraa. And for example, tobacco causes lung cancer and heart failure, and then alcohol causes liver cirrhosis or liver problems, and also bang causes mental disorders, and mira or cat can cause addiction, dependency, and vascular disorders. So make sure you're able to see and understand how these drugs have effects, not only just in the health of the user but also in the people around them. It can cause also people to drop out of school because maybe they have become dependent or they cannot concentrate in class, they're hallucinating, and so many other effects that are caused by drugs. Next, we are going to look at a few questions in regards to what we have been discussing. So, explain briefly the effects of drug abuse to the family. So, first of all, let's say we have addiction. So, when you're answering this question, you need to remember that it is the health of the user that is ultimately affecting the people around them. So if someone is addicted, you find maybe they cannot relate with their family members well. It also brings theft because this person has to like look for resources to get those drugs. And then let's say, for example, people have liver problems. If there's liver problems, it means there's a lot of money that is going to be spent on hospitals. So this might also strain the family in terms of where they're going to get resources to take this person to the hospital. If you have issues with mental disorders and hallucination, this also may affect in terms of the family being able to cater for that person. So there are so many things that can affect the family. But the first thing that directly affects the family is on the effects on the user. The user is affected, and then this also affects the family as a whole. So when you're explaining your answers, you start with what is happening to the one who is using or abusing the drugs, and then how does that affect the family as a whole. And then the next question is two drugs that are commonly abused by youth. We have bang, we have miraa or cat, we have alcohol, and also we have tobacco. So there's a lot of bang that is used by young people. So especially when people get into a certain level of age, and the exposure to the kind of people that are around them can cause them to abuse these drugs. So next, let's look at the last question. What is a drug? So a drug is any substance that when taken alters the way the body functions. So anything taken, it can be natural or artificial, it will alter the normal functioning of the body. So it's not necessarily have to be these drugs that are being abused, but also even medication. If you take overdose or underdose, you are altering. It's going to alter the body, the normal functioning of the body. So anything that alters, it can be natural or artificial. And it affects the normal functioning of the body. So that brings us to the end of the session. We are going to continue with this introduction bit in the next lesson. So see you then.